I'd like to officially call to order the specially scheduled Traffic and Parking Commission meeting of September 8th, 2025. Let the record show that Commissioner Camarena will be absent tonight. Commissioner Patel will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand and face the flag.
We have no ceremonial items, so we will move to public comment. This is the time for public comments to address the Commission on matters not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the Traffic and Parking Commission. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. If you would like to participate, please fill out a speaker card and turn it into the Commission Secretary, and your name will be called. Speaker cards are available at the agenda review table by the entrance. Madam Commission Secretary, have we received any speaker cards?
No public comments.
Consent calendar, items 1 and 2. This is the time for the Commission to consider matters listed under the consent calendar. Do any commissioners want to discuss this item, or is there a motion to consider these items?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar 1 and 2.
I'll second that.
The motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Camarena absent.
Okay, moving on to discussion item. Item number 3. This is the time for discussion item 3. Charlotte Fuertes, intern, please proceed with your presentation of item number 3.
Thank you, Chair Faust. Good evening, Commissioners. Once again, my name is Charlotte Fuertes, and I'm the Public Works intern. And tonight, I will be presenting the results. Tonight, I will be presenting the results and recommendations for the permit parking request on El Cabello Street. Back in September of 2024, the residents of El Cabello Street inquired about the possibility to implement permit parking restrictions along their street. Based upon initial observations and consideration for other means to address the permit parking impacts, this request was followed up by staff with 2 separate parking surveys in November, as shown in the staff report. The results of the survey show El Cabello Street sees an average of about 67% of their parking supply being impacted by overflow parking. It is important to note that the criteria for how impacted a street must be to be considered for permit parking is reduced to 50% or more due to the fact that El Cabello Street is in proximity to 3 other streets with existing parking permit restrictions, which can be seen in the vicinity map on the next slide. Okay, sorry. The 3 areas with the circle icons seen in the image is representing the existing parking permit restrictions, which are on Tulip Street, Lavaca Street, and Calle Tres Lomas. The areas with the triangle icons represent the proposed permit parking restrictions on El Cabello Street. So based upon staff's evaluation of the parking permit surveys, or the parking surveys, my bad, it was determined that El Cabello Street met the criteria for parking permit restrictions, and staff would proceed to conduct an anonymous mail-in ballot vote for residents on El Cabello Street. Based upon these mail-in ballot votes, 71% of the El Cabello Street residents were in support of permit parking restrictions. Once again, the criteria for approval is 67% or above. Staff's recommendation is the Traffic and Parking Commission recommend to Council to adopt a resolution to establish permit parking restrictions on El Cabello Street. And with that, this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
I've got a procedural question for Traffic Engineer Tran. When they're making these counts, how do you determine what's a resident's vehicle and what's not? How do the people that are taking the survey know that?
Yeah, so we try not to let them know when we are doing the survey, because, obviously that could be skewed a little bit. But what happens is that we run the plates. And so if it registers back to a person living on that home, we count them as residents. If it's out-of-state plates or out-of-the-area plates, those are considered quote-unquote outsiders, and we'll count that against the count for folks that don't live in the area.
So there's a potential for a little bit of error because some of the vehicles might be registered to a business or something like that. So,
Potentially, yes, yeah.
any commissioners, questions?
So I'm just curious how this works. So then, let's say they implement that, and then the residents get a sticker or some kind of parking permit that they display on their vehicle. What about if somebody has guests or a party or something and people park on the street? Is that, what happens then, or how does that work?
Yeah, typically, actually, we might want to hold that question because I think we want to go public comment first, Chair, and then we could circle back to that. I've written down what you asked, Vice Chair Armando, and we'll circle back to that. We might want to do public comments before we do commissioner comments, if we could do that.
I want to see how that works. I want to see how it works. So,
Yeah, I apologize. I believe there's,
Commissioner Patel, did you want to wait on comment? Okay.
yeah, public comments first.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and do public comment?
We have one public comment this evening. Ms. Brittany Basenden? Please.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I've never done this before, so I apologize if I'm awkward or uncomfortable. I am a resident of El Cabello Street, and I also would like to know the answer to your question as well about how that would work with guests. I am speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, residents of El Cabello Street. We are in favor of the parking permit situation because it is overly impacted. Before coming to the council today, I took a walk around my neighborhood and counted all of the cars before, that was at 4:40 p.m. today, so I tried to do it before most people would get off of work. On our street alone, there were 50 cars parked just on our street, not including all of the cars that were parked on the driveways and everything. This is an everyday occurrence when I pull into my neighborhood on Corte Cresta. When you pull through Corte Cresta and then turn around to El Cabello, both sides of the streets are absolutely completely filled and lined with cars. It causes very close, near accidents. It has cars double parking next to each other, so they're not just parked on the sidewalk, but they're also then parked with like their taillights on, just waiting. So then it turns into a one lane, and people come around the corner quite fast, and it has become a safety hazard. We have also noticed that the cars that are parking on the neighborhood are not our neighbors, not all of them. If it were just our neighbors, I'm pretty sure everything would be fine. I watch people come and park on our street, get out of their car, and then walk. They leave the neighborhood entirely. They go down to a different street, I'm not sure where. I've also witnessed people parking their cars and then being picked up by someone else and taken away. They do not live on our street. In fact, the street behind us on Tulip Street, where there is permit parking, some of the residents who live there will park on our street instead. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe they don't want to pay for the permit parking, but if they have a party or guests over, it puts all the influx onto our street. When we were moving into our home, we could not fit the moving truck because there was absolutely nowhere for us to park the moving truck. We had to put cones out and signs out and ask, please do not park here, just so we can move into our own home. We're unable to have guests over because there is nowhere for them to park. We're just worried also for safety concerns. We don't know who is parking in our neighborhood. We've gone around and we've met our neighbors, and we don't recognize the people who are parking there. On the streets that are permitted, for example, Tulip Street, there were only 5 cars parked. And then on the far end street, La Varca, there were a total of 7 cars parked, which is, almost the same amount of houses compared to the 50 cars that were parked on our street. And I just wanted to say I'm pro-permit parking.
Thank you.
And thank you for having this meeting and for listening. That is all. Am I also allowed to ask questions about like how it would work?
You're over the 3 minutes for one thing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Co-Chair Armando.
Just a question, I don't know, for her or maybe for you. It's hard to tell from the map, but do most, if not all, of these houses have driveways and garages?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Chair, if I may, if I could respond back to Vice Chair Armando's question in regards to the parties or guest parking that we were discussing. So, yes, so Vice Chair Armando, what we see here is that when we do the surveys, we try to figure out what the best day is out of the week to get what we call these outsiders, those that don't live in the neighborhood potentially. So we chose 2 Sunday early mornings, so late Saturday night, that's going to park over. We felt that that was the most appropriate at the time. And so typically what we saw was that around 50, and I believe our public commenter was right on the money about that there was about 50 folks that do not live in the area that park in that area. And so that's what we saw in the survey as well. And so that's what we counted as folks that do not live in the area, regardless of whether there was a party going on that weekend. I know it's close to Thanksgiving and things of that nature that you might have guests from out of town, but that is some of the consideration when we do the surveys, and how it comes about is that it seemed to be consistently around the 50 range that's going over to that street specifically. And the way we also check that is that this is not the only street that has permit parking. Obviously, there was the streets on La Vaca, Tulip, Calle Tres Lomas, Corte Cresta. Those have been surveyed in the past, and so we've seen that influx or that parking demand continue to move on up towards the north area of that area. So we're pretty confident of the survey being from not in the area.
Are there, on the permits, that's any time, right? It's 24 hours, there's not like certain times that they're in effect and others not?
Yeah, so per the policy, if this gets established and council approves it, they'll be allowed 2 permits per household. And if they have a residential permit for that year, it makes it a lot easier to get guest parking permits. We typically would hold a 10 guest parking permit limit per month. But if you have, say, we had graduations, we had birthday parties, showers, bridal showers and stuff like that, that's happening in the residential neighborhood. If they ask our third-party consultant data ticket, they will send me an email and I could confirm whether or not we will allow that.
Okay, and then again, who enforces this?
Yeah,
I mean,
currently
it
right
comes
now.
about Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, currently right now will be the Orange County Sheriff's Department, and they are allowed to enforce our parking permit areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Patel?
Thank you, Chair Faust. Mr. Tran, I probably have a couple of questions, so bear with me as I go through understanding the issue here. So when you do your surveys, in the staff report, you've got 2 dates that you performed the survey. In both cases, you either have 7 or 9 vacant parking spaces. Is that an indicator that parking is impacted if you have available parking spaces? I know it's only a snapshot of 2 days, but would you require to see more data to feel that that neighborhood is impacted?
Yeah, since we're quite familiar with the area, we feel like 2 weeks is good enough. However, there were times where there was a party going on or something along those lines. The Traffic and Parking Commission, we've sent the data and the surveys for another week of additional data just to support some anomalies. But in this instance, we didn't feel that there was an anomaly in regards to the data. The additional parking is absolutely, if there was no cars on that street, this is how many cars could have parked there. Obviously, you could tell that most of us don't park as efficiently as possible, and so that's why you sometimes see the numbers that are vacant is because of the efficiency of how they're parking. And so that's what you see here as reflected in the staff report.
Okay. Is the permit parking for the entire length of El Cabello, or I noticed a section of the street on the northeast side where there aren't homes facing on the street. There's homes on the opposite side of the street, but not on that particular side of the block. So right below where you've got the word El Cabello on the right-hand side, that part of the street, is permit parking planned or intended to be there also?
So if, what I'm pointing at is the side streets on El Cabello between Calle Tres Lomas and Calle El Toro Grande. Is that kind of the reference point?
That's correct, yes, thank you for.
Yeah, so to clarify, those folks were not part of the ballot vote. However, as part of our standard practice is that we would typically allow them to get permit parkings for their address since it's their side yard, but they do not get a chance to vote. But there are folks parking along those streets as well. We see a larger concentration of folks parking towards the west, which is towards Corte Cresta, and it kind of goes all the way to Lobo Drive and slightly dies off between Lobo and Calle El Toro Grande.
So sorry, just to reiterate my question. So will there be permit parking on that stretch of El Cabello also?
Yes, this is for the entire stretch of El Cabello.
So I'm just trying to understand why that side of the street would require the permit parking. The residents on what you have shown here on the north side obviously have some street parking, they've got some driveway parking. I'm trying to understand why that section of that street would require the permit parking.
Yeah, so for that part, it's not necessarily apparent, so to speak. And the thing is with this specific area is that the parking is there. There's folks parking in front of, adjacent to their homes, and it has affected them to the point where they would like to see permit parking, so we take the whole street. It's rather difficult for us to try to do sections of it because as you can see with all the other shapes and colors, you could see that this parking concern is not just going to go away because it's just simply moving it to the next area. So if we were not to address those areas, even though it meets all of our criteria and policy, we would be right back here having that discussion for that side of the road as well.
You know, I had a chance to drive by this neighborhood just before this meeting around 5 o'clock or so, 4:30 rather, 4:30 to 5. You know, I drove through the neighborhood, especially on Calle Tres Lomas.
Yes.
So similar situation there. There's permit parking on one side of the street, both sides of the street. One side has the residences, one side does not have, street-facing residences. They're more like the sides of the houses, the driveways are on adjacent streets. So I noticed that that street also, and other streets probably in that neighborhood, also have permit parking, even though residents are only on one side of the street.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to understand how that gets determined, why, one side of the street has residents, but the other side doesn't, and that would require permit parking. Not related to this particular street in question, El Caballero, but
Right.
I think it goes to the great issue. So I believe I understand where the root of the problem is. It's probably Cigarro Street. Cigarro Street has multiple or dense unit housing there. A lot of either apartments or condominiums, limited parking. That street in particular, I drove by today, and similar to what Ms. Brittany mentioned earlier, where folks are double parked and trying to find parking. And so I understand what's happening is potentially residents from that street are trying to find parking in other parts of the neighborhood here. I feel that at the same time, there's a lot of streets that are being permitted, and so those options are getting reduced as well for those residents. I'm just trying to wonder were there any mitigation techniques or opportunities available to kind of help resolve this situation for all the residents? So taking into account Calle Tres Lomas, for example, like the example I gave you, or the section on El Caballero where there isn't resident facing. I'm just trying to see if there's some sort of compromise we can reach here to make sure that there's sufficient parking for everybody.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Commissioner Patel. I think what you're looking for is somewhat of equity in the parking, right? And so Saguaro does have its challenges, don't get me wrong. The residents that do live there, they do have the opportunity to park on both sides of the road on Saguaro, but it's heavily impacted. Those are, I believe, fourplexes or triplexes mixed in there with the apartment homes at the tail end of the cul-de-sac. They do have an alley with garages back there, but that is being packed with other things other than a vehicle. And so there's been conversations with the landlords about their tenants, because a lot of them are renters, even though those are fourplexes to own at point in times. Those are typically landlords. And we've had conversations about that. The street that you see where Saguaro is in La Vaca, at this moment, it kind of passes my mind, but between that street that you see there down in the south area, there is allowed parking. It's not permitted in that section specifically, so there is a little bit of potential parking in that area if they wish to do so. But the folks that have lived in this area, obviously with the single family and the public street and the availability of parking, you could kind of tell that although there's residents on just one side of the road, the residents do, not only that they have driveways, but the driveways impact how much parking availability is there on the street. So they do tend to park if they have guests or parties or what have you, to park across. And that's what we considered as part of our policy when we put this all together, is that we would look for a stretch of roadway. I believe it states about 1,000 feet of roadway before we even consider it, that there are homes along those lines. 13 minimum, regardless of whether it's on both sides of the road. The only standard practice that is slightly outside of our policy is what you kind of pointed out, the side streets or the homes that's their side street, that they have some potential investment in there just because that's where they would naturally park along the edge as well. So what we've done in the past and currently today is allow those addresses to purchase a permit placard as well to address some of the concerns that has come up in the past when we've looked at permit parking in the area. So there aren't reason to try to balance all that where other multifamily dwelling units or those that are quote-unquote outsiders per the policy, really there's not an area for us to address that particularly in the policy. It's just a matter of has it met the criteria of folks not in the area parking in it, and do we want permit parking? And if the residents wanted to vote, they could decide that. And I think case in point is Corte Cresta. I believe I took that to Traffic and Parking Commission about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. They met the criteria. However, the homeowners decided to vote against it, to implement it. So they do understand that this impacts them as well. It's not just because all these single-family homeowners wasn't expecting people to park in front of their houses. They weren't expecting to put a restriction on themselves too, because like I said, it's only 2 permits per household. So if you have like a family of mine, like family of 5, 4 driving now, there's a potential that they'll be out in the street. And so if you have a family of 5 or more driving, and they park out in the street, you only could have 2 of them at a time out there, unless you get some type of guest permit. So there's some restrictions on themselves that they're willing to take due to the fact that it's so impacted in there due to what's surrounding them.
I appreciate that response, thank you. So when we look at street permitted parking, is the communication just with the residents of the street, or do we reach out to the broader neighborhood? I'm just trying to understand, like, how do you get feedback from the broader community, I guess, just to make sure there's an opportunity for residents in a broader area to come and speak about their concerns also?
Yeah, so per the policy, the requirement is trying to manage the parking demand out here through communications and community engagement. This area didn't have to do so much just because there's a record of existing permit parking areas. We've already done that in the first go-around at Lavaca. And the problem, like I said, is not going to go away because these are not renter or, so to speak, apartment homes where they're leasing and there's a lot of turnover. These are renters that have to live in these areas and they're staying there long-term. And there really isn't an area for them to park other than on Saguaro, the street adjacent to it, and then moving farther up. And so the conversation of, is there a solution? At this point in time, really there has not been for the folks on Saguaro, especially with communicating with some of the homeowners or the landlords. Those landlords, some of them have not responded to our communication, so it's very difficult to try to engage when they're not engaging as well. So we've done our best, but the folks that do live in the single-family residential has voiced their concerns, and like tonight we do have a public speaker in regards to that. That's just one of many that have reached out to me. That feel that this needs to be addressed in this manner. And since we have this policy and meets the criteria, that's why our recommendation is what it is tonight.
Okay. I just have one last question. So it looks like there was a procedure in place. You followed that procedure, mentioned in your staff report, performing the survey, reaching out to the residents, getting their responses. Once the permit goes in place, is there an opportunity for people or residents to, in future years, maybe request that, come back at a council meeting or a commissioner meeting and ask that permit parking be revoked or removed?
Yeah, so in the policy itself, you are allowed to remove permit parking. It's basically the same conversation, a petition of the homeowners, them saying, yes, that this is what we really want. After we did all this work, right? And maybe things change, right? Say 20, 30 years from now, things have changed. If it has, the city's not against it. It's just, do all the homeowners feel the same way? And that criteria of the 67% vote is still there. The criteria of getting a petition and letting us know that there are folks in favor, at least up to 67%. We personally have been requesting more than that just because you never know. 67, if you're right on the dot for a petition, doesn't mean that those folks are going to vote, right? And so we try to get as close to 100% participation from the front end of the request so that we know we have a good vote at the tail end of the request. So it's the same process, but it is clearly defined how that process goes. So the answer is yes, you can remove it.
Great, thank you. I yield back, Chair Faust.
Any other comments?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I think we got a request for Lavaca, and then after that, they moved over to Tulip, and then we got a request for Tulip, or the other street. Now we're going to get a request for this one, which is fine with me, but if we approve this, don't be surprised if in a year or two, you see people on Cali Lake Tromas or Lobo come back with permit parking requests, because that's what happens. They go somewhere else, and it's probably going to happen. So I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation to provide permit parking on El Caballo.
I'll second that.
Oops, sorry. Get that back to tight in.
Shows it took it on my side the first time.
That motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Camarena absent.
Question. One question, I know this is, we're good on this, but
You got an agenda here to follow.
Huh?
You're breaking a rule of the Brown Act.
no, I
You're
wanted to know,
breaking the law.
how was that?
Trust me. It's time for director comments. Does staff have any comments? Trey?
I have a few announcements to make. Mr. Doug Erdman is officially the Director of Public Works. So I would like to give a round of applause for Mr. Doug Erdman. We're happy to get the acting taken away from his title. Second, we have Charlotte Fuertes here tonight, obviously. So she has been with us throughout the entire summer. She is going back to school to UCLA in the next week. So tomorrow, or Wednesday, is her last day. She has come in here on her non-working day just to do this presentation for all of y'all. I just want to say thank you, and absolutely great opportunity for you, as well as great job doing all this. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to commissioner comments. Vice Chair Armando.
No comment, thank you for your presentation.
Commissioner Patel.
Thank you, Chair Faust. A couple of comments. Since the last meeting, I had a chance to attend National Night Out. There was a great event hosted by the city, held at the sports park. The young, or maybe youthful explorers were out there helping with parking and traffic. Maybe not traffic, but at least parking and just making sure areas were cordoned off. Although one thing I did notice is the event was held at, I guess it's called maybe the Commons or the Great Lawn area of the sports park. So that would be on maybe the north side of the park. Parking was heavily impacted. It was a great turnout. Lots of families and residents came out to this event. But we also had a lot of service vehicles that required some parking stalls closest to the park. And so there was only one drive aisle available for visitors to park, and that's the main access road, if you will. and folks were parking on that road itself, including myself, and so that narrowed that roadway quite a bit, enough for 2 cars to pass, but maybe something to think about, some parking and traffic management. I know folks were going in, hoping they would find parking, but they didn't have to make a U-turn and come back out, and so it just created more traffic and congestion. A wonderful event, but if we can inform the organizers to look into some better options for parking and traffic control there. I also had a chance to attend the Taste of Lake Forest event held at the Heritage Hill Park. It was a great turnout. I just wanted to commend the City of Lake Forest CERT program, the Community Emergency Response Team. The volunteers were out there helping with traffic and parking, in addition to first aid response and line control also. They had several briefing meetings before the event. Even prior to the event, they had a safety meeting and a briefing meeting, and it was well coordinated. I think overall the event was a success, and you know, some of the restaurant vendors tried to go opposite direction of flow of traffic, but the volunteers tried to keep them in check and in line as best as they could. So it was a great event. And then lastly, I did have a chance to visit Malabar Street. There's been some residents who voiced some concerns, similar to El Cabello, I guess. This is near Saddleback Ranch Road, up by Glen Ranch. So I had a chance to meet with a couple of residents, just to try to get their viewpoints and understand their concerns out there. And I think we talked about that at the last meeting, and we deferred discussion at the time, but I think I'd like to revisit that sometime in the future. Thank you.
Commissioner Riker.
Just want to say thanks, staff, for all your work on the parking thing. I know it's a lot of behind the scenes and prep work to get all that done, so thank you very much. You did a good job. Thank you.
I had a question about, another commissioner reached out to me regarding the parking on the end of Portola near Paloma, and I remember at one time we were looking at that, and their question to me was kind of what the status is, and as I remember, it got tabled for some reason. Could you elaborate on that, please, Trey?
Thank you, Chair Fowles. Yes, so that item of Portola, if you don't know the area, it is basically Alton Parkway and heading north. And so there's the end of the road of Portola in that general area past the Paloma signal. The area that we were talking about is Paloma between that end of the road. And a couple years back, I took a item to the Traffic and Parking Commission of potentially allowing parallel parking on that roadway since it's underutilized at this point in time. However, in the future, when Portola does eventually punch through into the Irvine area and hit the 241 per our general plan and per OCTA's master plan of arterial highways, that parking would have to be removed, right? That's a bike lane, it's a major arterial. So that request was coming from the homeowners in the general area due to the fact that Antibes and Paloma is heavily impacted with parking. So the Traffic and Parking Commission was so kind to review that, actually recommended it to go to City Council for consideration. At that point in time, we've had internal conversations about the parts of the HOAs and their opportunities and what's causing the need for additional parking since all these developments has been parked per code. And so what we realized was there were some things that the HOAs were doing, some of which was requiring that you pay for the spot in their private lot. And so that deterred some folks from parking in their community to park outside on the public street where it's free. The others have been that majority of those areas do have park or garage parking. I believe it's at least 2 cars for each condominium, townhome, and single-family home that's in the area. And we've asked whether or not are they following their CCNRs in regards to parking the vehicles inside their garages. They were not able to confirm that every resident was able to do that. So it's further exacerbated the demand for public parking due to the fact that the HOAs at that point in time were creating some of the parking demand themselves. So we circled back with the HOA, staff circled back with the HOA, asking if they could actually enforce more of their CCNRs and reevaluate their parking management plan for their specific area. And since then, they responded back that they understood our stance in regards to that before we could open up parking for that specific area, since it was only going to be temporary until we know what happens at Portola at the end of the road. So that's the status on that.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to say congratulations to Charlotte. That was a really nice presentation. Best of luck back at UCLA. And also congratulations to Doug. Thank you very much. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is October 6, 2025.